Hey, everybody. Welcome to Soothsayer. I'm your host, David Klein, and in this episode, I'm going to share with you 7 ways to spot a soothsayer. And this is just a con artist who claims to have divine spiritual insight, but their main goal is to take your money and to manipulate you. And if we're listening to them, then we shouldn't be surprised when our loved ones completely reject everything that we have to say about spiritual things, right? So that's why in this episode, I'm going to share with you 7 red flags that will help you flush out these con artists from your life so that you don't have to become their victims. Are you ready? Red flag number 1. Soothsayers are good at mimicking credibility. They're nice guys. They're friendly and even funny. They know that what they're selling is irrational and wackadoodle, so they have to seem harmless and look like they're credible. They dress in nice suits or priestly robes, and sometimes they grow out big bushy beards and carry worn-out looking Bibles. They might even hold titles like doctor, rabbi, or distinguished and best-selling author. And if they went to a prestigious school or have a large following, well, guess what? You're going to hear about it when they're introduced, of course. And none of these things prove that they're frauds. But the red flag that separates them from everyone else is their claim that God has spoken directly to them. A fraud will use God as the cherry on top of their credibility resume. This is probably why the Bible repeatedly warns the reader about people who claim to speak for God, because they usually have ulterior motives. Red flag number 2. Soothsayers want you to think that they're experts on theology and that they possess secret knowledge about God. Some of them will sprinkle their sermons with Hebrew words like Yeshua instead of Jesus or Adonai instead of God. They'll pause their sermons and explain what a Greek word means, or they'll casually drop in academic words like eschatology or exegetical or hermeneutical, when there are far easier words that mean the same thing. What they're really doing is just creating a ruse to make themselves sound like they know more than you do. And I want to clarify, I actually admire those who truly know the ancient languages of the Bible and aren't afraid to challenge their own beliefs. What I'm pointing out here are those who pretend to know more than they really do just in order to get you to follow them. Red flag number 3. Soothsayers are passionate about what they're preaching because, well, they've deluded themselves into believing that they're speaking for God. And this passion spills over into their charisma. They intentionally use voice inflections, perfectly timed pauses, hand gestures, emotional ups and downs. They put you on a roller coaster, and it's all to get your attention. That's because if they can create an emotional connection with you, well, then it's less likely that you're going to question what they're saying. They'll demonize logic and common sense, saying things like, well, the non-believers scoff at us and don't understand, but that's because God doesn't reveal divine wisdom to the wicked and the foolish. Can I have an amen? Well, what they're really doing here is using peer pressure and shame and their charisma to shut down critical thinking. This is what makes them so dangerous. They excel at undermining your common sense, which is your last line of defense against being manipulated. Which brings us to red flag number 4. Soothsayers will exploit worship and praise music to psychologically prepare you for brainwashing. Here's how it works. While you're singing and swaying and praising God, well, the music isn't just connecting you to the divine, it's softening your mind for their message. It makes everyone more receptive. After all, how could these guys be wrong if they're praising God? And that's exactly what they want you to believe. And this is not a tactic that's unique to religion. Think about it. Malls use soothing music to relax you and encourage spending. YouTubers play upbeat, jazzy tunes to keep you engaged. It's a clever psychological trick. When the atmosphere feels good, well, you're more likely to stick around and just buy into whatever someone's trying to sell you. Oh, isn't that nice? Doesn't it make you want to keep listening? So the next time you feel those chords pulling at your emotions, remember, you can enjoy the music, just don't shut down your brain. Red flag number 5. Soothsayers prey on your fears. They know exactly what we're afraid of: financial ruin and hunger, eternal damnation and separation from our loved ones, disease, war, foreign invaders coming in. Frauds know that people are drawn to a good scare, so they turn the whole world into one big horror movie. They take prophetic allegories from the Bible that are known to be symbolic, like the moon turning to blood and the sun darkening, or an earthquake that's so great that every mountain is flattened and every island vanishes. Then they mix these ancient prophecies with visions that God has given them. And then they tie it all in with current world events. So every rare planetary alignment, every plague and economic disaster or Middle East peace deal, they become confirmation signs that doomsday is just right around the corner. And of course, this terrifies their audience, and that's exactly what they are counting on, because once they've baited us with their fear and panic, they yank the cord with soothing promises that God will protect you because you're part of his chosen remnant. You're not appointed to wrath, but to peace and prosperity. But of course, these blessings are only for the insiders, the ones who follow their teachings and donate money. Look, if you don't believe in God, you can still see why this hook is dangerous, because it allows these frauds to control people with fear. Then they take their biases and influence how they see themselves and their enemies. The insiders who donate the money and time and follow their teachings are special and chosen and safe. The outsiders who reject their teachings, well, they're wicked and lost, and they deserve judgment. But this is not how the Hebrew prophets operated. And Christians claim to worship the God of Israel, right? But this God did not send prophets to preach peace for the children of Israel and destruction for everyone else. Yes, there are places in the Bible where God's anger was directed at the nations that oppressed Israel. But if you read these scriptures, you'll see that God's anger was usually directed at the insiders, or the children of Israel, because they, especially the rich, were oppressing the poor, the widows and the orphans, and the strangers in their land, while the priests were corrupting God's laws for their own gains. So that's why the prophets specifically warned them about the soothsayers who were running around promising peace and prosperity while everyone was behaving so unjustly. In fact, they described 2 simple tests to help identify these frauds. These 2 tests are red flag number 6 and number 7. So the first of these tests was very straightforward. If a prophet claimed that God told them something was going to happen, and then it didn't happen, well, they're false. Simple as that. You fool me once, shame on you. You fool me twice, well, then it's shame on me. But here's the crazy part. In our society, false prophets can fail again and again, and guess what? People still believe them. Take a look at some of the most well-known examples. Sid Roth, Kenneth Copeland, Kat Kerr, and many, many others have made bold predictions about weather, elections, world events, miraculous healings that never happened, and yet their followers just keep on coming back for more. If it were easy for people to stop following these frauds, then there wouldn't really be any need for this kind of a warning. But I think the reality is they're probably hard to stop following, because for most of us, it's pretty hard to admit when we've been duped by a fraud. Does this mean then that anyone who makes a prediction and it actually comes true is a prophet? Not necessarily. I want you to think about a broken cuckoo clock. The hand is stuck on 12, so twice a day, the clock is going to be right. But unlike the broken cuckoo clock, frauds still make their cuckoo sounds. Cuckoo! That's why the Hebrews had a second test. Red flag number 7. If a prophet was accurate, but their message caused the children of Israel to become unjust and reject their God, well, then they were false prophets. Here's a good example. What if someone predicts the stock market crash because, well, they were lucky or just observant? Well, the real test in this case is not so much about them being right, but instead how they use their newfound fame and influence. In the Hebrew scriptures, a true prophet called the children of Israel to justice and righteousness. False prophets, though, they don't do that. They use their influence to make money and to slander their enemies. And today, these types of frauds have built entire marketing networks on TV and social platforms to promote themselves, sell their books and their music, grow their bank accounts, and manipulate millions of people. That's why I'm creating this channel called Soothsayer. I believe that YouTube needs more channels that aren't afraid to confront these frauds who are exploiting human suffering and fear. And if you're a Christian, tarnishing God's reputation in order to promote their own self-serving agendas. If you've ever been tricked by one of these cons, you're not alone. I've been fooled by them. So please, I want you to share your experience in the comments below. And of course, if you want to hear more of this kind of content, please hit like and subscribe and join me in the next episode where I reveal the real identity of Lucifer and Satan, according to the Hebrew scriptures and according to the revelation of Jesus. I'm not saying this is a good guy, but what I'm going to do is uncover why so many churches continue to spread false teachings about him. So if you're intrigued, subscribe and stay tuned. And thank you for watching. And I hope this episode helps you. And of course, I hope you'll join me again. Have a good day.